This is Ralph Jaffe. It is January the 24th, and I want to talk to you about corruption in government. You know, in 2002, I started a movement to begin the process of getting rid of all the corruption in Maryland politics and to replace it with real, true political, ethical reform. We made a lot of progress. You see, one of the things I want to do is I want to get money out of politics. Now, in June of 2018, when I ran for governor, and in all of my previous campaigns, I've had 7 campaigns in which I run for office. But you see, I'm not a politician, I'm a teacher. But I believe the best way to teach my students is not by words, but by action. So I use the campaigns as a teaching device to show my students where the corruption is, and then on a volunteer basis, my students are free to vote for what I stand for. So I do want you to know that in the June primary in 2018, when I ran for governor, on a budget of $495, yes, that's $495, that money came from my sister and myself. We didn't take any money from anybody because, you see, once you take money from somebody, you've been bought. So on that budget, I'm very proud of the fact that we received 9,495 votes. Per dollar, we got more votes than anybody running for office. In all my previous campaigns, it's been the same way. We haven't won the war yet. We won another battle. So as the movement continues to evolve, tonight I want to talk about corruption in government, specifically speaking, the shutdown of the government. It's now, I think, 34 days that the government has been shut down. And I blame both parties, both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, for the shutdown. Because you see, we have career politicians on both sides. We have career politicians on the Republican side, we have career politicians on the Democratic side. And they have one thing in common. They want to keep their money, fame, and power. They don't care about you. They don't care about the people that are hurting. Like the 800,000 people right now, the federal workers and their families, were suffering. I saw something very painful to me. I saw a lady on television saying she had to make a choice between chemotherapy and her rent. It's disgusting. It's sad. It's awful because we have corrupt government. Both parties are at fault here. So let me give you where I see the breakdown is. I believe the Republican Party is 85% at fault here because instead of standing up to Mr. Trump, who is without a doubt the worst president in the history of our country, a person who has no feelings for anybody but himself. All he cares about is himself. He's done so many things wrong. He's lied. I think there was a fact-checking statistic that he's lied over 8,000 times since becoming president. So he's a pathological liar. He is also corrupt in his business dealings. The reason why he's involved with Russian banks is because apparently it got to a point where he can no longer get any credit from American banks. He doesn't pay his bills. And can you imagine we've elected this person as our president? It's awful. So the Republicans in both the House and the Senate have defended him. They're enablers for this man, with the exception of one obscure Republican congressman whose name is Will Hurd. And his district is on the southern border, where the so-called wall is supposed to be needed. He's had the courage to man up to Mr. Trump. He's had the courage to vote against him on all these bills that have been before Congress. Will Hurd, the only courageous Republican in the Congress. Now, as far as the Democrats are concerned, I believe they're 15% at fault here. Why? Because they have failed, their leaders have failed to motivate the bankers in their constituencies, the grocery stores, the pharmacies, to say to these business leaders, loan the federal workers the money to pay for their food, to pay for their rent, to pay for their medications. Loan them the money. And once the government is reopened, then they'll pay you back. They have failed miserably. All I've seen Democratic leaders do is announced they're exploring the possibility of running for president. They're not exploring. They're all going to be running. They don't even tell you the truth. So they are 15% at fault. So now the question is, what do you do about this? I want to make these suggestions to you. First thing you have to do is to contact your congressman and your 2 United States senators, wherever you live, and say, you have to call them up on the phone. You have to say like this. You have to say, my name is so-and-so. I'm a constituent of Congressman so-and-so. I'm a constituent of Senator so-and-so. And say, if you don't open up the government by tomorrow, I'm voting you out of office. Again, you got to say to them like this. Say, you don't open up the government by tomorrow, I'm voting you out of office. And then the second thing you have to do is the impeachment of Donald Trump. I first asked my congressman 2 years ago to begin the impeachment process of Donald Trump. You see, when you're a public servant, you can't even give the appearance of being unethical or being morally bankrupt. You can't even give the appearance of doing this. And so I urge you to also call your congressman and your 2 United States senators and say, I want you to begin the impeachment process of Donald Trump. And if you don't do it, I'm going to vote you out of office. That's what you have to do. If you can do this, then we can get some action. We can get the government reopened. And we can get the process started of impeaching Donald Trump. He's the worst president in the history of the country, and he has to go. We have to force him to resign so that we can begin the process of bringing back our country together and beginning the process of eliminating all the problems and all the suffering that he has done to us. That's what we need to do. I welcome your comments. You know, you're free to call me and tell me how you feel. But these are my suggestions to you, and I thank you for listening.